I never thought my life would turn into one of those dramatic relationship stories you hear about, but here I am. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Laura for 5 years. We met in college and quickly became inseparable. We used to have so much fun together, exploring new restaurants, binge-watching shows, and planning spontaneous trips. But lately, things have felt off. We used to have a standing date night every Friday, but it seemed like every week, Laura would cancel last minute. At first, it was just a vague excuse about work or feeling tired. I'd brush it off, thinking she was just stressed. But as the months went on, I started to notice a pattern. I keep a calendar for us, one of those digital ones that syncs up to my phone. It became like a puzzle, this strange code I needed to crack to understand what was happening. Each time she canceled, I noted it down. Meeting with clients. Can't make it, sorry. I just need a quiet night. But the cancellations started piling up, maybe 2 or 3 a month, and I realized that on the nights she canceled, she was often out. Late, the first few times I'd give her the benefit of the doubt, but by the fifth or sixth time I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. One Friday night I decided to confront her. I was tired of the excuses and the vague responses. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence started to pile up in my mind like a case file. I texted her, asking if we could talk when she got home. She replied with a simple, "Sure, honey, just finishing up some work." I had no idea how that conversation would change everything. When Laura walked in that night, she had this look on her face, one I hadn't seen in a while. It was a mix of annoyance and something else, maybe guilt. I was nervous but determined. I started with how much I missed our date nights and how disappointing it was to be stood up so frequently. She rolled her eyes, dismissing my concerns as if I were just being petty. "Jake, I've been busy, you know how it is," she snapped. That tone she used, it was almost like she was irritated that I was bringing it up at all, but I pressed on. "I know you're busy, but it feels like you're pushing me away. It's not just about the dates, it's everything." That's when I saw it. For a brief moment, her irritation morphed into something darker. She looked defensive, almost cornered. "Are you seriously going to pull this on me?" she asked, crossing her arms. I felt my heart race, anger bubbling up inside me. "Pulling what?" I shot back. "I just want some honesty." And that's when the real fight broke out. She denied everything, claiming I was being paranoid and overdramatic. But as I pressed her, the lies started to slip. "You really think I have time for an affair?" She laughed, but it didn't sound genuine. It felt off, rehearsed. Every time she laughed, it felt like she was hiding something beneath it. I was flooded with emotions, shock, anger, frustration. But what crushed me the most was the feeling of being disregarded, as if my concerns didn't matter. I began to question everything about our life together. Was I so blind to what was happening? After she left the room in a huff, I felt a mix of rage and sadness wash over me. I knew I couldn't just let it go. I needed more proof. I needed to dig deeper. I felt like a detective in my own life, piecing together a story that had been unfolding right under my nose. It was time to find out the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. I had to gather more information. The confrontation didn't give me the resolution I'd hoped for, but it lit a fire inside me. I had to know if my suspicions were correct. If she was cheating, I needed to find a way to confront her with undeniable proof. The weight of that feeling, knowing something wasn't right, was unbearable. I had to act, and so I did. In the following days, I became a man on a mission. I found myself obsessively tracking Laura's movements. I took mental notes of her schedule, which seemed to change almost daily. She continued to work late, hit the gym at odd hours, and spent time with friends I'd never met. It was like she was living a double life, and I was the unwitting fool in her fairy tale. One Friday, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I could no longer rely solely on vague feelings and scattered excuses. I started by checking her phone when she left it unattended. I loathed the idea of invading her privacy, but the desperation to uncover the truth outweighed my moral reservations. My heart raced as I scrolled through her texts. There were conversations with her friends, most of which were harmless. But then I stumbled across something that turned my stomach. There were messages from a guy named Eric, a name that had never come up in our conversations. They were flirty, filled with emojis and inside jokes. My throat tightened as I read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last time was unforgettable." I felt a cold wave wash over me. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight as I processed the implications of what I was reading. This wasn't just a friendly chat, this was something deeper, something intimate. I quickly put the phone down, my hands shaking. I had to gather myself. The next evening I acted on impulse. Laura had mentioned she was meeting friends for dinner, which had become a common excuse lately. That's what I told myself. I had to see if she was really going out with her friends or if there was more to it. I grabbed my jacket and decided to follow her. I waited until she left the house, then I slipped into my car and quietly trailed her, trying to maintain a safe distance. My heart pounded in my chest as I drove through familiar streets, keeping my eyes glued to her car. My mind raced with thoughts of what I might discover. Each passing minute felt like an eternity. I watched her pull into a trendy restaurant, one we had visited together many times. I parked a few blocks away, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to see, but I certainly didn't anticipate the sight of her walking in with Eric, her laughter ringing out like a cruel taunt. They sat at a corner table, their body language speaking volumes. I watched as she leaned closer to him, her hand brushing against his arm. My heart sank. I felt rage boiling inside me, yet at the same time a deep sense of betrayal washed over me. I was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to look away from the scene unfolding before me. It was infuriating and heartbreaking all at once. After they finished their meal, I saw them standing outside, exchanging laughter and lingering glances. I couldn't help but notice how she looked at him, a sparkle in her eyes that I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. This was it, the proof I needed, the confirmation of the dark suspicions that had plagued me for months. As they moved to leave, I pulled away from my spot and drove home. My mind was racing, filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, betrayal, each feeling crashing over me in waves. I replayed the scene over and over, the laughter, the glances, the undeniable chemistry. It was visceral and it felt like a punch to the gut. Once I got home, I sat in silence, trying to collect my thoughts. The confrontation I'd had with Laura before now felt trivial compared to the reality of what I had just witnessed. I had seen the truth with my own eyes, but I still felt the need to confirm it in a way that would leave no room for denial. I pulled out my phone and texted Laura. "I'd like to talk about Eric." The moment I hit send, a wave of dread washed over me. I knew this conversation would change everything. I would have to confront her, and I had no idea how she would react. Would she deny it? Would she come clean? The waiting was agonizing. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering down into the abyss of my crumbling marriage. I had to prepare myself for whatever was coming next. This wasn't just about finding closure, it was about reclaiming my life and my dignity. I was done being the blind fool. I was ready for the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That night felt impossibly long. I hardly slept, my mind racing with thoughts about how I would confront Laura. I knew one thing for sure: the evidence I had gathered, her messages and the sight of her with Eric, was undeniable. I felt a mix of determination and dread as I prepared for the conversation that would shake the foundation of our marriage. The next morning I woke up early, my heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. I brewed a pot of coffee, trying to clear my mind, but it was futile. By the time Laura wandered into the kitchen, I was already on edge. She looked refreshed, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Morning, babe, you're up early," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. She was dressed casually, her hair falling effortlessly around her shoulders. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of the love I used to have for her, but it quickly faded, replaced by the anger that had been simmering since my discovery. "Can we talk?" I said, my voice steady but laced with tension. She raised an eyebrow, her smile faltering slightly. "Sure," she replied, her tone wary. I led her to the living room, where the atmosphere felt thick with unspoken words. I sat down on the couch, motioning for her to join me. She hesitated before taking a seat across from me. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest as I prepared to lay everything on the table. "Laura, I know about Eric," I said, my voice steady but firm. Her expression shifted from confusion to something more guarded. "What are you talking about?" she replied, her eyes narrowing. "I saw the messages and I saw you two together at the restaurant last night." I continued, watching her reaction closely. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her defensiveness palpable. "Jake, you're being ridiculous. It's just a friendship. You know how I am with my friends," she insisted, but there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her confidence. "Don't lie to me, Laura. I saw how you looked at him. This isn't just a friendship, it's something more, isn't it?" I pressed. The anger that had been simmering inside me threatened to boil over, but I needed to remain calm. I needed her to understand that I wasn't going to let her brush this off. She hesitated, her facade cracking. "Okay, maybe there's some flirtation," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it doesn't mean anything. It's just harmless fun." Harmless fun. I echoed, disbelief flooding my veins. "You're spending time with another man behind my back. How is that harmless? You've canceled date nights for him, you've lied to my face." Her eyes darted away from mine and I could see the guilt etched on her features. "I didn't want to hurt you, Jake. I was just lost. You've been so focused on work and I felt lonely." She tried to explain, but her words felt hollow. The ache in my chest deepened. "So you thought cheating was the solution? Running to another man instead of talking to me?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, and I felt utterly helpless. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I thought it was just a phase and I could stop anytime. I never wanted to hurt you." Her admission hit me like a slap to the face. I felt the tears prick my eyes, but I fought them back. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. "You've already hurt me, Laura. You've betrayed my trust in the worst way possible." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of our shattered relationship hanging heavily in the air. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I couldn't let my emotions control me. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried to gather my thoughts. "Where do we go from here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air like a guillotine waiting to drop. Laura hesitated, her eyes glistening with tears. "I don't know, Jake. I messed up and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to try and make it work. I love you." Love. The word felt heavy. I wanted to believe her, but doubt clouded my mind. How could I trust someone who had broken my heart? The emotional roller coaster of anger, sadness, and confusion was overwhelming. "I need time to think," I said finally, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "I can't just jump back into things after all of this." Laura nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand. Take all the time you need," she said softly. As she sat there crying, I felt a sense of desperation wash over me. I was lost in a sea of uncertainty, grappling with the reality of what had transpired. The woman I thought I knew had betrayed me, and the pain was sharp and raw. I watched her as she wiped her tears, and for a moment I wished I could turn back time, back to the days when everything felt right. But reality was here, and I had a decision to make. I needed to figure out if I could ever trust her again, or if it was time to walk away for good. The future felt bleak, and I was left wondering if we could ever recover from the damage that had been done. The following days felt like an endless fog, shrouded in uncertainty and heartache. I moved through my routines in a daze, going to work and coming home, but the warmth of our home had faded. The laughter that once filled the walls felt like a distant memory, replaced by the heavy silence that lingered between Laura and me. We were like two strangers cohabitating in the same space, both trying to navigate an emotional minefield. I tried to keep myself busy, focusing on work and doing things that had once brought me joy. But every time I came home, the reality of our situation hit me like a freight train. I could see the pain in Laura's eyes when she looked at me, and I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it was buried beneath layers of betrayal and anger. One evening, I found myself sitting on the couch, flipping through channels but not really watching anything. My mind was racing, and I realized I needed to talk to someone about all of this. I picked up my phone and decided to call my best friend, Mark. He had always been my go-to person for advice, and right now I needed a sounding board. "Hey man, how's it going?" Mark asked, his voice cheerful, but I could tell he sensed the tension in my tone. "It's not great," I admitted, feeling the weight of my words. I told him everything, how I'd followed Laura, what I had seen, and the confrontation that had left me feeling shattered. I could hear Mark's breathing shift as he processed the news. "Dude, I can't believe this. I'm so sorry you're going through this," he said, his voice laced with concern. "Have you thought about what you're going to do?" "I honestly do. No, part of me wants to walk away, but I still love her. I just can't shake this feeling of betrayal. How can I trust her again?" I replied, frustration creeping into my voice. "It's a tough spot, man, but you have to think about what you want. Can you see yourself rebuilding after this? Can you forgive her?" Mark asked, his words probing into my soul. I thought about it for a moment. "I don't know if I can. The thought of her with another man, it's eating me alive. It feels like a scar that will never heal." Mark was silent for a moment before responding. "You deserve to be with someone who respects you, Jake. If she's not willing to do the work to earn back your trust, maybe it's time to think about moving on." His words resonated with me. I had been so focused on trying to salvage our relationship and maybe even make excuses for Laura that I hadn't considered what I truly deserved. I needed to prioritize my well-being. "Thanks for listening, man. I'll figure it out," I said, hoping to convince myself as much as him. After hanging up, I took a deep breath. I realized I needed a plan, a way to move forward that felt right for me. I couldn't continue living in this limbo, constantly questioning myself and Laura's intentions. A few days later, I decided to have another conversation with Laura. I wanted to know if she was willing to confront the issues head-on and put in the work necessary for us to move forward. I needed to see if she understood the gravity of her actions and whether she was genuinely committed to rebuilding our relationship. We sat down in the living room again, the atmosphere still thick with unspoken tension. Laura looked nervous, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for the right words. "Jake, I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I know I messed up and I want to fix this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Fixing it means more than just saying sorry, Laura. You need to understand that trust is built over time, and right now you've shattered mine." I replied, my tone firm. "What are you willing to do to earn that trust back?" "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, sincerity creeping into her voice. "I'll be transparent with you about everything. I'll let you see my phone whenever you want. I'll end things with Eric. I don't want him, I want you." Her words hung in the air, and I could see how much she wanted to make amends, but I still felt a gnawing doubt. "It's not enough just to say those things, Laura. I need to see change. I need to know that you're committed to us and that you understand the hurt you've caused." "I get it. I'll go to therapy even if it's on my own," she replied, her eyes pleading. "I'll show you that I'm serious about this. I don't want to lose you." I nodded slowly, contemplating her words. The idea of her going to therapy was a step in the right direction, but it wasn't a magic solution. It needed to be backed up with consistent action and genuine effort on her part. "Okay, let's start with that. But know that it's going to take time. I'm not going to just jump back into things. You'll have to earn my trust back, and I hope you understand that," I said, my voice steady. Laura nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "I understand. I'm willing to do that. I love you, Jake." As I watched her, I felt a mixture of skepticism and hope. I wanted to believe in her, but I knew it would be a long road ahead. This wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. The truth was, I had a lot to process. The heartache and betrayal clung to me like a shadow, and while I was open to the possibility of reconciliation, I needed to prioritize my healing. This journey wasn't just about Laura. It was about reclaiming my own sense of self-worth and ensuring that I wasn't sacrificing my happiness for her mistakes. As I sat there, I realized that this was just the beginning. Whatever happened next would shape not only our relationship, but also who I was as a person moving forward. In the weeks that followed, life transitioned into an uneasy rhythm. Laura and I found ourselves caught in a fragile balance, navigating the complexities of our relationship after the betrayal. She began attending therapy as she had promised, and we tried to carve out time to talk about our feelings, though each conversation was fraught with tension and vulnerability. Initially, I was skeptical each time Laura opened up about her therapy sessions. She would share insights about her feelings of loneliness and how she had sought validation in other places. I listened, trying to understand her perspective, but each revelation was like a knife twisting in my gut. I wanted to support her journey, but it felt like a constant reminder of the trust that had been shattered between us. During one of our deeper conversations, Laura opened up about her childhood. "I've always struggled with feeling like I'm not good enough," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought I could fill that void with attention from others. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you." Her honesty struck me. It was painful to hear, but I could see she was genuinely trying to confront her demons. "I get that, and I want to help you through it," I replied, my tone softer. "But you have to understand that it doesn't excuse what you did. I need to know that you're committed to building a future with me, not just trying to repair the past." "I am committed," she insisted. "I just need time to show you that I can change." I nodded, understanding that change wouldn't happen overnight for either of us. Yet, despite these hopeful moments, I still felt an undercurrent of doubt. I started to realize that I needed to set some boundaries for myself. I wasn't just going to wait around for Laura to figure herself out. I needed to focus on my own well-being too. So I made a decision. I would start attending therapy as well. I wanted to process the pain I felt and discover how to rebuild my sense of self-worth. I knew that I couldn't fully support Laura on her journey unless I took care of my own mental health. The first few sessions were tough. I struggled to articulate my feelings of betrayal, anger, and confusion. My therapist encouraged me to explore my emotions and understand how they impacted my perceptions of trust and intimacy. It was an eye-opening experience, and I began to recognize patterns in my own behavior that I had overlooked for years. Meanwhile, Laura was making efforts to reconnect with me as well. She'd surprise me with small gestures, cooking dinner, leaving sweet notes around the house, and trying to engage me in meaningful conversations. While I appreciated her efforts, there were moments when I couldn't shake the feeling of resentment. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find her waiting for me with a candle-lit dinner. I could see the effort she had put into it, but I wasn't in the mood for romance. I felt guilty for not being able to reciprocate her enthusiasm. "Wow, this looks amazing," I said, forcing a smile as I took a seat at the table. "Thank you. I wanted to do something special for you," she said, her eyes bright with hope. As we ate, the conversation began to drift toward lighter topics, but I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. I needed to address the elephant in the room. "Laura, I appreciate this, but I'm still really struggling to feel like we're on solid ground," I admitted, my voice heavy with honesty. She nodded, her expression shifting to one of understanding. "I know I've hurt you, and I wish I could take it back," she said softly, "but I'm trying to show you that I can be better. I just need you to believe in me again." "I want to believe in you," I replied, the honesty of my feelings flowing out. "But it's hard when I still feel the weight of what you did. I need time to heal, and I hope you can respect that." "I will," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "I just don't want to lose you." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, and for the first time in weeks I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could work through this together. But I also knew that rebuilding trust would require patience on both our parts. As the days turned into weeks, I began to notice subtle changes in Laura. Her commitment to therapy seemed to be paying off, and she was becoming more self-aware about her actions and their consequences. We started having deeper conversations, exploring not just the pain but the joys we had once shared. However, the lingering shadow of her betrayal still loomed over me. There were nights when I would wake up heart racing, haunted by the images of her with Eric. I struggled to shake the jealousy whenever I saw her on her phone, a habit that had become ingrained in me from the previous months. Every notification felt like a potential threat, and I wasn't sure how to navigate those feelings. One evening, after a long day at work, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I needed space to think, to process everything that was happening. As I walked through our neighborhood, I took in the familiar sights and sounds, but the happiness I once derived from them felt distant. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a neighborhood park where families were gathered, children laughing and playing. It made me reflect on our own life together, the family we had once dreamed of building. I sat on a bench and closed my eyes, allowing myself to envision what a future could look like, a future with Laura if we could overcome this hurdle. But the more I imagined the possibilities, the more I felt the weight of reality pressing down on me. The scars from Laura's betrayal were still fresh, and while I wanted to envision a happily ever after, I had to be honest with myself about the work still needed to be done. That night, I returned home, feeling more grounded. I knew I had to have another heart-to-heart with Laura. I wanted us to explore what rebuilding trust would look like in practical terms and how we could create a path forward. As I walked through the door, I saw her on the couch, absorbed in a book. She looked up and smiled, and for a fleeting moment, the warmth of our connection washed over me. But I knew this was more than just a moment of comfort. It was time to revisit the conversation about our future. I took a deep breath and approached her, ready to navigate this challenging path together. I realized that it wouldn't be easy, but if we were both committed to healing, there was a possibility for redemption. And maybe, just maybe, we could emerge stronger from the ashes of our shattered relationship. That evening, I settled beside Laura on the couch, the weight of our recent conversation settling heavily on my shoulders. I turned to her, taking a moment to gather my thoughts before speaking. Laura, I want us to have an honest conversation about where we go from here. She nodded, sensing the seriousness in my tone. I'm ready, Jake. I want to hear what you have to say. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to rebuild trust, I began, choosing my words carefully. I think we need to set some clear boundaries and expectations for both of us. Laura looked apprehensive but willing. What do you have in mind? First, I need to know that I can rely on you to be transparent. That means being open about your phone, your plans, and who you're spending time with. It's not because I want to control you, but because I need to feel secure, I explained, watching her reaction closely. I can do that. I want to show you I'm serious about fixing things, she replied, her voice steady. Secondly, I think we both need to commit to individual therapy. It's clear that this isn't just about infidelity. There are deeper issues at play for both of us. I want us to work on ourselves so we can come together stronger. I continued, feeling a sense of relief as I articulated my thoughts. I agree, she said earnestly. I've realized I need to address my own issues and I want to support you in yours. Lastly, I spoke about the importance of regular check-ins. Let's create a routine where we can talk honestly about our feelings, our progress, and if anything feels off. I want us to be proactive in addressing problems before they escalate. Laura smiled, her eyes glistening with gratitude. I love that idea. I want to be on the same team, and I appreciate you being willing to work with me. As we continued to talk, I felt a sense of hope emerging from the depths of my heart. We discussed both the challenges that lay ahead and the possibilities for a renewed connection. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the same page, ready to tackle the difficult road ahead. In the days that followed, we began implementing these changes, and I noticed subtle shifts in our dynamic. Laura was more open about her feelings, and I found myself sharing my own fears and insecurities. It was a slow process, but with each conversation, the weight of the past felt a little lighter. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, I noticed a change in the air between us. The tension that had once clouded our interactions was giving way to a more genuine connection. Laura reached for my hand, and I felt a spark of intimacy that had been missing for so long. I know it's going to be a long journey, but I believe in us, she said, her eyes shining with sincerity. I'm committed to showing you how much you mean to me. And I believe in you too, I replied, squeezing her hand. But it's going to take time, and I need you to be patient with me as I heal. We both understood that forgiveness wasn't a simple switch to flip. It was a process that would require constant effort from both of us. But for the first time, I felt optimistic about the future. One afternoon, as I sat at the kitchen table, I reflected on our journey. I thought about how far we had come since that fateful night when I confronted Laura about Eric. The road had been rocky, filled with moments of doubt and pain, but we were taking steps to rebuild our love. I realized that while the scars from her betrayal would always be a part of my story, they didn't have to define our future. As the weeks turned into months, Laura and I continued to grow together. We prioritized our check-ins and supported each other in our individual therapy sessions. I began to see a shift in not only our relationship but also in myself. I felt stronger, more self-assured, and more willing to communicate openly. Through this process, I learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and forgiveness. I discovered the importance of advocating for myself and recognizing my worth. I also learned that love is not just about the good times. It's about navigating the storm together and emerging on the other side, hand in hand. While the journey was far from over, I felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real and it was ours. As I looked at Laura, I knew we were on the path toward healing. We were no longer just surviving, we were learning to thrive. Real love, I realized, is not just about the absence of betrayal, but about the willingness to confront it, to work through it, and to choose each other again and again, day after day. And with that understanding, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our future, one filled with growth, trust, and the promise of a love rebuilt.